Michael Baker is one of 4 contractors working with FHWA on the long-term bridge performance program. We each have an IDIQ contract with them. We were selected to perform the data collection for the southeast, for the Gulf region bridges. And to give you a little bit of background on what the long-term bridge performance program is all about. It's supposed to be a 20-year long-term research effort to improve the knowledge of bridge performance, similar to patterned after the long-term pavement performance program. Just as a backdrop, it took them a long time before they were actually given products out from that data collection. And what we've been working with FHWA and Turner Fairbanks with the long-term bridge performance is people don't want to wait that long anymore. So we're working with FHWA to try to come up with short-term wins from the program, and we're looking at how we can do that. But so funding was made available in Safety Lou, MAP 21, and FAST all include funding that can be used for the program. First thing they did was they kind of determined a definition of bridge performance and what are the things that impact a bridge's performance. And these are what were listed here. So this all goes to what kind of data collection do you need to do to really be able to pick up the points that are here to come up with performance of your bridges. So there's a vision, and the mission is to foster improved bridge performance, health, stewardship, and management. And this is really key to what we're talking about here in terms of preserving your bridges. You need to preserve these bridges so you can see how they perform. Coming up with some decision-making tools. So all this is part of the program that's being done out at Turner Fairbanks. So the first thing they did was they identified the bridge performance issue. There's a theme here, the same thing that we just talked about, really. Decks and joints and bearings and, your steel and concrete superstructures. And look at the issues there, the same things that we just talked about. So it's very clear that it's a synergy between what we're doing here at the bridge preservation as well as what they're looking for in the long-term bridge. So the way they set that up is they're looking at bridges basically in clusters around climate zones. Okay, so you can see this is the map of the U.S. We had the cluster, down in here, the Gulf, what they're calling the Gulf cluster. WSP-PB is actually doing the western cluster, both northwest and southwest. And Rutgers and their consultant had done the mid-Atlantic. So those are the clusters that have been done. And for the folks that are in this room from Tennessee and North Carolina and Georgia that aren't, and Kentucky that haven't actually been in a cluster yet, those are going to be, there's 2 cluster areas that will be, well, one cluster is this Tennessee Valley. I don't know if that's still the name of it, but it was a Tennessee Valley cluster, which will pick up your states. But then the other thing that, when you look back to the issues that are impacting the way bridges perform is really, how they're used. And so they also looked at 10 suggested corridors that will be, other bridges will be picked off these corridors. And that's also where, like South Carolina, Tennessee, Arkansas will have some more bridges. Arkansas will have some more bridges based on a cluster along I-40. And then a lot of the other states, Georgia, Virginia, as well as the Northeast, Florida, will have some on I-95, and Texas will have some more from I-35. So essentially, you're going to have a couple bites of the apple from different states, and basically the clusters are basically, and corridors are how they're grouping those projects. So as I mentioned, we're looking to try and have some products that are available to the owners. And here are some of the things that, they've done protocols on how to do the inspection and do the data collection. There is a bridge portal that's available. Several of you in this room I know are the long-term bridge coordinators for your states. So you've seen some of this stuff. They're working on developing this data-driven determination modeling They've got the methodology down. Now they're trying to populate that with the data that we collect. And there's a whole host of NDE technologies. Talked a little bit about the Rabbit earlier, and there's a picture of that in here. Coming up with a long-term bridge performance index. And the bridge practice timeline, that's really kind of interesting because, as you all know, bridges were designed that are still in use right now with a different set of specifications and a different set of design standards. And then that gets modified. And then, so how are those bridges performing versus bridges that are designed with different standards and different specifications? So that's all been developed to try and help them take the data that we're gathering and others have gathered to see how the bridge perform. So this is what I mentioned earlier about what we've done on field data collection. There's the Mid-Atlantic, steel and pre-stressed concretes. What we did, the Gulf steel and Gulf pre-stressed concrete, and PB's doing the Northwest. I guess that's WSP and PB now. The Northwest pre-stressed and concrete. This is some of the NDE data collection that they did out on the, I think this is the pilot bridge in Virginia that is actually going to be replaced, I think, right?
It's in the process
right
now.
So what they've talked about doing is taking some pieces of this bridge and bringing it back to Turner Fairbanks and doing some advanced testing on it there. They've also talked about potentially bringing this up to that new testing facility they have up at Rutgers University that they're calling the Beast, where they actually can put in sections of bridges and run a truckload over it back and forth in an accelerated fashion to find out how it's performing. But as you can see, this method is very time consuming. You have to take out lanes. And so thoughts are, how do we improve that? What's next? And so that's actually where this Rabbit, the robotic assisted bridge inspection tool, came from. Now this is the, I think this is actually the second. They had a prototype and then this one. And I know when I was here last year, we talked about getting this out to the Gulf region bridges, and I asked that question, and for some reason I was not given approval to get this out here. So I know if you want to ask your FHWA representatives again, maybe they can do that. But I do know that Federal Highway did request and are in the process of having 5 more built. And my understanding is that the next wave of data collection, which I'm going to talk about, they will be part of that program. So perhaps you'll get this out here when your bridges get done in another cluster or in the corridors. So this is kind of the path forward. I was privileged to go to the bridge. I guess it's the Bridge Advisory Committee that's guiding the work for the long-term bridge performance. And this is kind of what they're looking at as their path forward, is they add clusters, and then you then also would then re-inspect that cluster like this, and then you'd add clusters, and there'll become a decision point in here and say, do we have enough bridges? Do we have enough, do we have enough bridges to check and see, are we getting good results in our performance modeling? So there'll be decision points in there. But this is, what they're looking at doing next. So right now we're basically done with our field inspection, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But the next wave will be coming out where they're going to do those other clusters that I mentioned, as well as the corridors. There's a discussion at TRB this year was that they would have a RFP on the street to add about 800 bridges to the data, collecting data for 800 bridges in these areas. And again, this is kind of how they're looking at to do the work. Right now we're doing the untreated decks. We actually did element level inspections for the girders as well as the bearings and joints. I know out in the west, though, I think PB is only doing the decks and the underside of the decks. But this is kind of how we're doing. So the first thing is the untreated decks, then there's going to be the treated decks, and we're going to pick up all these other things as we move along. So an update on what we've done here. As you can see, we're basically complete the field work. I really do want to thank the folks from Arkansas, Florida, Texas, everybody, the guys in this room that, you know, have seen me a couple times now, and they're saying, why is this guy from New Jersey here? You know, but they, you know, they've been great, you know, from Mississippi, Louisiana. Everybody's been really, really great in helping us get these bridges done, because we're done and PB is not done yet. And we started at about the same time. And I attribute that to the folks in this room that gave us great help, you know, in getting out there and doing our work. So what we have, and I'm going to share this with you here after this meeting. I'm going to be sending an email to y'all, because we have these reports. One is, the one on the left is a report that's generated by the Advitam software that you basically, we put all our data into. And then the one on the right is a letter report that Michael Baker's used previously with other clients that basically kind of summarizes what we did. And I want to get from, you know, the owners that we did this for, how would you like to see this information? You know, you may say, okay, because the data that you get on the Advitam report is really just that. It's all data. There's no real description. It's just really pictures and ratings. And then on ours, there's a little bit more narrative to it and some other things. And, you know, when I send this to y'all, what I want you to think about, do you notice how I dropped that y'all in there? You know, it's a guy from the north. When I send this to y'all, I'd like you to, you know, if you want both, tell me, or however you want to see this information, and then I'll work with FHWA to get the appropriate releases so that we can, you know, formally send it to you. And we'll also probably work with PB on what format they're trying to get, and we'll get one so that you guys get that data, because I think that's really, really important. It's also one of those short-term things that you see of value coming from the program. So that's it. I know I'm running up against lunch, so I want to make it pretty quick. But here are the folks that have been, you know, doing the lion's share of the work behind the scenes. You know, I've been here the last 2 meetings, but, you know, without Hamid, Rob Zobel, Sue, and Sue was here. Yamira helps her, and Tom Sad. And actually, there's another guy that I should have put on here, is Fred Faradaz, who's been working really closely with us to make this go as smoothly as possible. So if anybody's got any questions, you know, I'm willing to answer them.
What is the procedure to obtain access to the portal?
Basically all you need to do is request it. I believe if you're a state owner, I think you can just request it, because you wouldn't get right, you know, you couldn't write to it, but you could read it and manipulate the data however you wanted. There was a great presentation. It's a really good question, Jeff. I appreciate that. There was a really good presentation on the portal at TRB this year in ways that you can slice and dice that data to really understand what and how it can be used. Did Anwar have something?
Hey, Dick, you go back to that previous slide with the contact information. If you just shoot an email, Jeff, to Rob Zobel, he's the one that's administering that. Just shoot him an email, he'll give you access to it.
Great,
Right.
thank you.
And I think that the presentation you're talking about was a webinar, it might have been recorded, so you may ask Rob to provide that to you.
Yeah.
To walk you through it.
There was a webinar on that. That's right, Anwar. And you know, one of the nice things about that is all the searches that are done in the portal are saved, so that somebody might have already done what you wanted, and you can look at that information. So.
Okay. All right, thank you, John. Yeah, like John said, I'd like to take just a few minutes to give you a brief update on some of the NCHRP, primarily bridge and maintenance related topics. And this is by no means all inclusive, but this is primarily the ones that have been of interest to the AASHTO Subcommittee on Maintenance. A few of the projects that have been completed: Project 1424, Guidance for Communicating the Value of Highway System Maintenance and Preservation. That project was completed by the High Street Consulting Group, and NCHRP Report 742 has been issued. And I think that's a very useful document if you're trying to communicate the value of preservation to your executives or even the general public. Another one that has been completed is Project 1427, Guide for the Preservation of Highway Tunnel Systems. That project, again, is complete, and Report 816 has been issued. And any of these reports that have been completed and issued, they should be available on the TRB website for download. Another completed project was the update of the Subcommittee on Maintenance Strategic Plan. That work has been completed, and the strategic plan has been updated, and the updated plan is available on the Subcommittee on Maintenance website. Some of the active projects: Project 1423, Practical Bridge Preservation Actions and Investment Strategies. The work on this project was basically terminated, and the work that was completed through phase 1 and 2 has been documented in 3 unreviewed deliverables. And then going forward, further research related to bridge preservation will be performed under the new NCHRP Project 1436, whose title is Proposed AASHTO Guide for Bridge Preservation Actions. That work is being done by the University of Colorado. The work is in progress, and the estimated completion date is February of 2018. As was mentioned earlier today, Project 12100, Guidelines for Maintaining Small Movement Expansion Joints. The TRB website shows the completion date is January of 2016. I don't believe all the work has been completed yet, but hopefully it will be completed soon. Project 1429, and I think maybe this was mentioned in one of the report outs or something like this: assessing coding and marking of highway structures in emergency situations. Again, that project was scheduled to be completed March 11th. Hopefully it will be completed in the near future. Project 1428, Conditional Assessment of Bridge Post Tensioning and State Cable Systems using NDE. Again, that project was scheduled to be completed on March the 31st. Actually, that's today, isn't it? But I think the contract is a little behind schedule, and the report won't be completed for some period of time yet. Project 1430, Spot Painting to Extend Highway Bridge Coating Life. Again, that project scheduled completion date was March the 2nd of 2016. Its contractor is still working on that, so it'll still be some time before it's completed. Project 1432, Proposed Revisions to the AASHTO Movable Bridge Inspection, Evaluation, and Maintenance Manual. Dan, I think you were involved in that.
Scott's ballot item right now.
It's all right, a Scott's ballot item right now, so should be soon.
Well, it's been completed, and it's up for ballot for
Okay, great.
AASHTO voting for this year.
Okay, so we should see a report in the next few months then. Okay, great. Project 1097, Detection and Remediation of Soluble Salt Contamination prior to coating steel structures. That project is in progress, and the estimated completion date is July of 2018. Project 12104, Guidelines to Improve the Quality of Element Level Inspection Data. Again, the project is underway. Estimated completion date November of 2017. Project 12108, Guide Specifications for Service Life Design of Highway Bridges. The proposals have been received on that project, and the contracting process at NCHRP is underway. Okay, a couple of active 2007 projects, updated the ASHTO maintenance manual for roadways and bridges. The RFP was posted on December the 31st. The RFP close date was February the 18th, and the panel is in the process of selecting a contractor now. And project 2007 task 387, maintenance actions for fatigue cracking in steel bridge structures. That project has been awarded to Purdue University, and the completion date is estimated to be February the 2nd of 2017. And that's all I have. That is by no means all-inclusive, but kind of give you a flavor of some of the bridge maintenance-related projects ongoing. Questions? All right, thank you very much.